Not one, not two, not three, but four players who all at one point were considered first-round options, first-round talents that the Browns could have gotten on night one of the NFL draft.
The Cleveland Browns might be preparing to make the boldest quarterback move nobody saw coming. And if this actually happens, it could completely flip the future of this franchise upside down overnight. Because right now in Berea, there's a strange energy building behind the scenes. The kind of energy that usually shows up right before a massive move gets leaked. Browns fans have spent years begging this organization to finally solve the quarterback problem once and for all. And now there's growing belief that Andrew Berry may have found a way to steal a first-round level quarterback talent without even touching the top of the draft board. And the craziest part, almost nobody outside Cleveland is paying attention yet. But inside that building, the whispers are getting louder every single day. Brendan Sorsby is suddenly becoming a name Browns fans need to know immediately.
The Browns offense in general has already, through 3 rounds and 5 total picks, been reimagined.
Joe Royer may have accidentally exposed the Browns' entire plan without even realizing it. Because when a player already inside your locker room starts publicly calling his former quarterback a first-round talent, that changes the conversation instantly. This wasn't random hype between former teammates. Royer caught nearly 80 passes from Sorsby at Cincinnati and built real chemistry with him over multiple seasons. He knows exactly how this guy processes the game, how he reacts under pressure, and how dangerous he can be when the offense starts rolling. That's why Browns fans should take this seriously. Royer didn't just say Sorsby was talented. He specifically talked about his arm strength, his quick decision-making, and how fast he reads defenses. Those are NFL traits, real NFL traits. And suddenly, people around the league are starting to wonder if Andrew Berry is quietly positioning himself to pull off one of the biggest steals in recent Browns history.
For all intents and purposes, Andrew Berry has hit a grand slam with the way that he's executed his draft and the players that he's brought in.
Here's the part nobody is talking about. The supplemental draft is exactly the kind of market inefficiency Andrew Berry loves attacking. Everybody focuses on the regular draft because that's where the headlines live. But Berry has built his reputation on finding value where other teams hesitate. That's why this entire situation feels incredibly realistic. If Brendan Sorsby officially becomes eligible for the supplemental draft after the June deadline, Cleveland could potentially land a quarterback with legitimate starter upside for a fraction of the normal cost. Think about how insane that would be for this franchise. Instead of tanking for a top 5 pick or mortgaging future drafts to move up the board, the Browns could sneak into the quarterback market through the back door and come away with a first-round caliber arm while the rest of the league scrambles to react. Now, obviously, this isn't a clean situation, and that's where the tension starts building. Sorsby is currently dealing with reported gambling-related issues and undergoing treatment, which immediately makes NFL teams nervous. The league does not play around when it comes to gambling policies. We've already seen suspensions handed out across the league, and teams know the NFL office could come down hard if they feel they need to set an example. That's why some organizations may completely remove Sorsby from their board altogether. But Cleveland has never operated scared under Andrew Berry. This front office has consistently shown they are willing to bet on talent if they believe the person is serious about fixing the problem. The Browns believe in structure, support systems, and long-term development. That's why this entire situation suddenly feels very different than people realize.
Spencer Fano, we had talked about him at various points of the pre-draft process. I mentioned his versatility being something I think the Browns were really going to lean into and maybe like, and that turned out to be true, and they were able to snag him with the 9th overall pick when they traded back with the Chiefs.
This is where it gets dangerous, because when elite talent starts slipping due to off-field concerns, smart front offices begin convincing themselves they can fix everything. And honestly, sometimes they're right. The Browns have already built a culture where second chances are possible if players buy in completely. That's a huge reason why this entire rumor refuses to die. People around the organization understand that Todd Monken's offense desperately needs a young, mobile quarterback with processing speed and vertical passing ability. Brendan Sorsby checks every single one of those boxes physically. He's got the size NFL teams want, he's got the arm to attack deep windows, and according to Royer, he processes defenses incredibly fast. That matters because Monken's offense becomes terrifying when the quarterback can extend plays and threaten defenses outside structure. And honestly, when you start looking at the current Browns roster, this move suddenly becomes even more fascinating. This team isn't rebuilding anymore. That's important. Cleveland isn't sitting at the bottom of the AFC hoping to luck into a quarterback someday. They believe they can compete right now. The defense remains one of the best units in football. The offensive line has been reworked for maximum protection. They've added more weapons on offense. This roster is too talented to naturally end up drafting in the top 5 anytime soon, unless everything completely collapses. So if you're Andrew Berry, you almost have to start thinking creatively about the future quarterback situation, because eventually this franchise needs a long-term answer, and those players rarely become available cheaply. This is where young players usually make a mistake. They assume talent alone will save them once they reach the NFL, but the league destroys players who don't have discipline. That's why the Browns would need to feel absolutely certain Sorsby is serious about changing his life before making this move. Talent is only one piece of the equation now. The mental side matters just as much, and honestly, that's probably what Cleveland is investigating the hardest behind closed doors right now. Teams do background work years before players even enter the draft. The Browns likely already had scouting reports on Sorsby long before any gambling concerns surfaced publicly, but now they also have Joe Royer sitting inside the building giving first-hand information about the quarterback's work ethic, leadership, and personality. That insider connection could become massive in this process.
Then you get Casey Concepcion, who I know late in the process especially, all the pundits, all the draft analysts thought was in play for them at that pick, and it turned out to be true. And I at least had, at some point along the way, considered that they could take him at that point.
And let's be honest here, Browns fans are probably feeling two completely different emotions at the same time, excitement and fear, because we've all seen how risky quarterback situations can destroy franchises overnight. Cleveland fans know better than anyone what happens when expectations explode too quickly. That trauma still exists, but at the same time, you watch the film, you hear the endorsements from teammates, and you start imagining what this offense could eventually become if Sorsby develops properly. Suddenly, you're looking at a quarterback with first-round physical tools entering a situation where he wouldn't even need to start immediately. That's a huge advantage. He could sit, learn the system, build chemistry with Royer again, and slowly develop inside an offense designed around his strengths. Here's the part nobody is talking about. Chemistry already exists between Royer and Sorsby, and that matters way more than fans realize. Young quarterbacks struggle entering the league because everything speeds up instantly. Defenses move faster, windows close faster, trust becomes everything. But when you already have a reliable target who understands your timing, your tendencies, and your body language, it can accelerate development dramatically. Royer had nearly 900 receiving yards playing with Sorsby across multiple seasons. That's not random production. That's a quarterback and tight end building real trust. And let's be honest here, Browns fans are probably feeling two completely different emotions at the same time, excitement and fear, because we've all seen how risky quarterback situations can destroy franchises overnight. Cleveland fans know better than anyone what happens when expectations explode too quickly. That trauma still exists, but at the same time, you watch the film, you hear the endorsements from teammates, and you start imagining what this offense could eventually become if Sorsby develops properly. Suddenly, you're looking at a quarterback with first-round physical tools entering a situation where he wouldn't even need to start immediately. That's a huge advantage. He could sit, learn the system, build chemistry with Royer again, and slowly develop inside an offense designed around his strengths. Here's the part nobody is talking about. Chemistry already exists between Royer and Sorsby, and that matters way more than fans realize. Young quarterbacks struggle entering the league because everything speeds up instantly. Defenses move faster, windows close faster, trust becomes everything. But when you already have a reliable target who understands your timing, your tendencies, and your body language, it can accelerate development dramatically. Royer had nearly 900 receiving yards playing with Sorsby across multiple seasons. That's not random production. That's a quarterback and tight end building real trust over time. Imagine dropping that existing chemistry directly into Todd Monken's offense. Suddenly, this starts looking less like a gamble and more like a calculated long-term investment. And you can already see why this would completely reshape Cleveland's future plans. If the Browns somehow steal a developmental franchise quarterback through the supplemental draft, it changes everything about how they approach future drafts and roster building. Instead of desperately chasing quarterbacks every offseason, they could spend premium picks strengthening the roster around him. That's how sustainable contenders get built in today's NFL. Teams that solve quarterback early gain enormous flexibility everywhere else. That's why this potential move feels so much bigger than just adding another player. It could completely shift the timeline of the Barry Monken era. This is where it gets even crazier though, because if Cleveland pulls this off successfully, the rest of the league is going to look completely foolish for ignoring the opportunity. Think about it. Teams spend years tanking, trading assets, and praying they find a franchise quarterback. Meanwhile, the Browns could potentially walk away with one through a supplemental draft most casual fans barely pay attention to. That's the kind of move executives dream about. And honestly, it fits Andrew Berry perfectly. He has always looked for inefficiencies. He always looks for ways to maximize value. That's why people inside Cleveland are taking these rumors seriously instead of dismissing them immediately. Of course, there's still a very real possibility this never happens. The NFL could suspend Sorsby heavily, the Browns could decide the risk outweighs the reward, or another team could jump in aggressively before Cleveland gets the chance. But the fact we're even having this conversation tells you how serious the talent evaluation probably is internally. Nobody would risk this level of attention for an average prospect. The Browns clearly see something special here, and once teammates inside your own building start publicly pounding the table for a guy, that noise spreads fast across the organization. Honestly, this entire situation feels like the kind of move that defines front offices forever. If Cleveland lands Sorsby and he becomes a star, people will point back to this moment as the beginning of a completely new era for the franchise. It would become the ultimate redemption story, a talented quarterback overcoming personal mistakes while the Browns finally find stability at the most important position in sports. That's movie-level stuff. But if it fails, critics will immediately say the Browns ignored obvious warning signs again. That's why the pressure surrounding this decision is enormous, and the timing makes everything even more intense. The June deadline is approaching fast. Every single day brings more speculation, more rumors, and more questions about what the Browns are planning behind closed doors. Fans are split right down the middle right now. Some want absolutely nothing to do with the risk. Others believe elite talent is worth betting on if the support system is strong enough. And honestly, that debate is only going to get louder from here, because once people truly understand how much upside this move carries, it becomes impossible to ignore. At the end of the day, this isn't just about Brendan Sorsby anymore. It's about whether the Browns are finally ready to think differently at quarterback. For decades, this franchise has searched desperately for stability under center. Now they may have stumbled into a completely unconventional opportunity to change their future forever. That's why this story has exploded so quickly around Cleveland. The possibility alone is enough to make fans nervous and excited at the exact same time. And if Andrew Berry really believes he can pull this off, then the entire AFC better start paying attention immediately, because the Browns may have just found their next franchise quarterback hiding in plain sight. So now the question goes directly to the fans. Would you take the risk if it meant potentially stealing a first-round quarterback talent without giving up a top pick? Or do the off-field concerns scare you too much to even consider it? And most importantly, do you trust Joe Royer's evaluation enough to believe Brendan Sorsby could actually become the future of the Cleveland Browns? Because one thing is clear right now, something massive is brewing in Berea, and the next few weeks could completely change the direction of this franchise forever.